say to members in the community who may be concerned that your office dealing with these high-profile cases will take away the resources of prosecuting these cases, these lower crimes that we're seeing?
I would say they should pay attention to what's been going on. When I came here, there was an 18,000 case backlog. It went 7 years. That backlog has been cleared. We are up to date. And so although that's a little catchphrase people want to do, I'm a sister. I can do all of it. I can prosecute high-profile cases, and I can prosecute everyday cases when they need to be prosecuted. But I can also start the first ever in Fulton County pre-indictment diversion plan, where we are giving citizens a second chance and making sure that they can be restored.
Yeah. It's rewind time.
Fulton County DA Fani Willis and the APD have teamed up to bring justice to hundreds of sexual assault victims. A new initiative will combat a backlog of sexual assault kits.
Going on. When I came here, there was an 18,000 case backlog. It went 7 years. That backlog has been cleared. We are up to date.
Fox 5's Eric Mock is live with those details for us tonight. Eric?
Yeah, you know, Fani Willis told us that this partnership that they're doing with the Atlanta Police Department is groundbreaking in getting these kits processed quicker. And the funding they're getting from the federal government, she says, is essential to getting this done. That funding is going to give them $2.5 million, and that's going to help them test more than 4,300 sexual assault kits that are sitting at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Now, out of those 4,300, 3,500 are cases just in the Atlanta Police Department's jurisdiction. It's also going to enable 2 Atlanta Police Department detectives to come onto the Fulton County's Sexual Assault Kit Initiative Team, or SAKI team, and that's dedicated just to addressing this backlog of kits. Now, Willis said this is going to bring justice to potentially hundreds, if not thousands of victims, and she says to them, they are much more than just a number. Willis says the GBI has a limited amount of scientists who can do this work, so this money is in large part going to hire private labs to take on the backlog and start testing these kits. And, you know, another reason Willis says this is so important is that sometimes when they start testing a lot of these kits that have been on the shelf for decades, they find patterns of serial that then they can go after and prosecute.
Going on. When I came here, there was an 18,000 case backlog. It went 7 years. That backlog has been cleared. We are up to date.
We begin tonight with Fulton County's top prosecutor saying her office is battling a public safety crisis after a perfect storm of events. Last night, during a passionate plea, she asked county commissioners for millions in funding to hire more staff. Today, she told our Joe Hinkie if she can't expand her office soon, hundreds of defendants charged with violent crimes could be released from jail. Joe?
Well, Jennifer, that perfect storm. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis tells me years of mismanagement before she took office, then the COVID-19 pandemic closing courts, and now a spike in violent crime created a backlog, thousands of cases long, and she simply needs more help to properly investigate and prosecute each case.
Going on. When I came here, there was an 18,000 case backlog. It went 7 years. That backlog has been cleared. We are up to date.
Coming from each and every one of your districts, suspects that may get out of jail on September the 13th. Write it down.
And here we go. In a fiery presentation Wednesday night, District Attorney Fani Willis told the Fulton Board of Commissioners September 13th is the deadline for when she must have 1,400 plus defendants indicted, or they can receive bonds and walk out of the Fulton County Jail. The inmates are charged with a wide variety of crimes, including murders, assaults, and sexual offenses.
I'm not asking for one thing for Fani T. Willis. I am asking for the resources to do this job properly so that we can keep all of us safe.
Keep telling yourself that, darling.
Since taking office in January, Willis has said she needs more attorneys and investigators, but says for various reasons she has not received funding to make the necessary hire.
Stop the cap.
We're not just sitting back and waiting. I've pulled my most senior lawyers, 25 of them, and I have them doing double duty right now. They're doing their current backlog, and then we are specifically focused on the murders and the sexual assaults to try to get this work done, but I can't run them like that forever.
Willis asked commissioners Wednesday for more than $7 million, broken down here, to deal with the historic backlog, a backlog from when courtrooms closed during the pandemic, and now cases flooding in due to increased crime.
Vast majority of the budget will go towards employing people. And then, of course, things that are just common sense if you think about it. If I hire a lawyer, I need to give them a laptop. I need to give them a cell phone so that they can communicate with witnesses.
Willis also says there are various items some investigators currently work without, such as bulletproof vests.
Commissioners are now working to find funding in the county's budget, and Willis is hopeful next month the board could approve her request. If they do, Willis tells me she has already interviewed people who could begin immediately. She also asked the board yesterday for $50 million more next year to maintain her office, continue hiring staff, and find more office space to avoid future backlog.
Say, hold up, wait a minute. Something ain't right
going on. When I came here, there was an 18,000 case backlog. It went 7 years. That backlog has been cleared. We are up to date, and so
keep telling yourself that, darling.
Madam DA was sworn in and began her term in 2021. So we did receive enhancement requests from her for the 22 budget cycle, the 23 and the 24.
What was the $5 million enhancement request for clearing up homicide backlogs? Do y'all recall that? That was testified to here last meeting.
That was a request that came through in the middle of 2021. She requested additional staff to support a number of items, the outstanding homicide situation being one of them. Ultimately, in 2021, through a budget amendment process that we call budget soundings, the Board of Commissioners did authorize her to have funding for an additional 55 positions. Wow. It was a mix of attorneys, investigators, and administrative support personnel. And in 21, the cost that was necessary to begin to onboard those positions, because she would not be able to do all 55 at one time, was less than $800,000. I think the budget soundings was $780,000 and some change. But the full annual cost for that is the $5 million. And so we built that in then to her 2022 budget with the full year funding for all of the positions that the board awarded her mid-year in 2021.
And was there any mention in that $5 million enhancement request that would be needed for any type of public corruption investigation?
I will have to go back to the source document to confirm that.
Because Chairman Pitts, what I am hearing from you is that the Board of Commissioners never got any kind of specific request for additional funding to prosecute any election interference cases, other than that generic $1 million, in 23.
Not that I recall, sir.
Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
And no specific information about who needed to be hired as an independent contractor or what they would cost. I understand Governor Barnes was too expensive, and I just didn't know if that's that y'all figured that out or she ruled him out for that reason.
Stop the cap.
No, not that I recall.
I am subject to hiring a man.
He's a gun for hire if anybody out there is paying attention, and pleasure to have you in the audience with us today, Governor Barnes. And I'm just wanting us to get a feeling for exactly how much oversight there is. It sounds like it's very loose as far as employment practices and expenditures for independent contractors.
Why give them that when I can take it for free?
Yeah, that information doesn't come before the board.
Only you have to peel it out in these soundings and in the annual audit and in the budget submissions as she gives you the categories of what she needs.
That's correct. And when budget soundings come before the board, there's a little more detail and more specifics.
Right. Probably pretty difficult politically for you and the Board of Commissioners to reject a request for needed funding to clear up a backlog in homicide cases, right?
Well, I mean, we had such a tremendous number of cases that were so-called, they've been there for up in the thousands. And we decided that the $75 million from the ARPA funds has already been referenced by Ms. Whitmore. Right. So in order to weed through $75 million of that, I think we received a total federal allocation of about $206 million. in ARPA funds, and 75 million of that 206 million went to the justice system. And the justice system meaning everything that the CFO has outlined.
So that was back in the fall of 2021. It was about the same time Mr. Wade was being hired. And it wasn't mentioned to you that any of the enhanced money was going to go towards Mr. Wade or any other special prosecutor to prosecute election interference.
No, it was my understanding that that 75 million was to be used for the justice system, and specifically, to reduce the tremendous backlog that we had.
And there was a $5 million enhancement that was from county funds, not the ORCA funds, or is that the same money?
Is that the same money?
No. The 5 million is general fund.
Okay.
County.
And in that request, that was on top of the ORCA funds to get rid of the backlog of homicide cases.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. She actually asked for over 100 positions when she made the request, and the way in which we addressed it was we already had the backlog program in development, and so we identified a certain number that would be funded through the backlog project out of the ARPA resources, and the balance we provided for out of the county's general fund.
And this is back in the fall of 2021.
Yes, sir.
2 years before her 1.1 million request for public corruption and Tex MacGyver.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did she ever report back to you the progress being made? What kind of bang you were getting for your buck? You're giving her tens of millions of dollars in either ORCA funds or federal, state, county general funds to get rid of this backlog. Did she do it?
I don't recall any specific report back to the board from the district attorney. However, at each meeting of the board, we would receive an update on progress that was being made. That's accurate, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, sir. As part of our global pandemic response, we presented the Board of Commissioners with an update for a while at every board meeting, and then eventually at just one meeting a month to update them on our progress using our ARPA resources, and specifically on the backlog project, showing total backlog cases, progression of those cases through the system. And so we've been reporting on that regularly up until February of this year due to our cyber incident. So we are almost ready to begin that reporting process. Again, the last report that we made of the progress of Project ORCA was in January, at the second meeting of the Board of Commissioners in January, and that was for progress through the end of 2023.
So would that list the number of homicide cases that are pending and how many are being resolved on a monthly basis?
It doesn't list case type. It lists the total number of projects, the total number of cases by each of the players, if you will, the solicitor, the magistrate court, the district attorney, and then superior court and state court. So we kind of track the progress of the cases from the two prosecutors, from the solicitor and the district attorney, into their respective courts, and then we track the progress that the courts themselves are making in fully adjudicating the cases. So that information is all presented to the board in a chart and discussion, and what's happening, all the various different things that we had to do in order to see that line make the progression that we were looking for.
So how many backlog cases were there? Do you have a ballpark figure how bad this got back in 2021? We're a year into the pandemic. The courts are not trying cases.
I told you this before, I'm going to tell you again. I don't play the odds. I play the man.
Тогда пацана посчитаем потери, суммы нули.